Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking a truly dramatic story of transformation. We're talking about a fall from power, a moment of total blindness, and a complete reinvention of a person. And trust me, this isn't just some dusty old tale. It's a powerful lesson about pride, perspective, and how sometimes our biggest setbacks can actually lead to our greatest growth. So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll get to know the man at the center of it all, Saul. Then, we're going to travel with him on a road trip that changed absolutely everything. After that, we'll dig into the deeper, symbolic meaning behind his fall. And finally, we'll connect the dots and see what this ancient story can teach us about change in our own lives. Let's jump in. All right, first things first, who exactly was this guy, Saul of Tarsus? To really get his story, you have to understand the world he lived in, a time of intense religious passion and some seriously high-stakes expectation. Saul was a man of deep, you could even say unshakable faith. Like so many people around him, he was anxiously waiting for a promised savior, the Messiah. The hope, the dream, was for this mighty leader to finally come and free Israel from foreign rule, to bring back a golden age of glory. Now, to really get inside Saul's head, you have to understand the bigger picture. His people had faced humiliation for years under different conquerors, but their belief in an all-powerful God never, ever wavered. This mix of suffering and absolute conviction created a kind of spiritual pressure cooker. It led to this really rigid, defensive faith, where any perceived insult, any blasphemy, was met with absolute zero tolerance. And right at the very core of this faith, at its bedrock, was a simple, absolute rule, straight from God: "Thou shalt not kill." It was meant to be a clear, uncrossable line, or at least it should have been. But this is where it all takes a dark turn. This is where Saul's intense devotion twists into something really dangerous. He saw the followers of this new teacher, Jesus of Nazareth, as the ultimate threat, as blasphemers, and in his mind, that justified a ruthless campaign of violence that completely shattered the very commandment he claimed to be defending. So Saul's campaign in Jerusalem was, by his own brutal standards, a success. But he wasn't finished, not by a long shot. His mission was taking him north, to the city of Damascus, to continue his persecution. But this particular road, well, it was about to lead him someplace he never, ever expected. And what happens next is just wow. It's this incredible, stunning chain of events. First, this brilliant, blinding light from the heavens strikes Saul down, knocking him right off his horse. He's left completely helpless, physically blind for 3 whole days. Then, a man named Ananias, a follower of the very faith Saul was trying to wipe out, is sent to help him. And in that moment, something described as scales literally falls from Saul's eyes, and he can see again. The whole thing culminates with the persecutor being baptized, joining the very community he once tried to destroy. Okay, so this is obviously way more than just a historical account, right? This is a powerful story that is just packed with symbolic lessons. So now, we're going to unpack what it all really means. The most famous image from this whole story has got to be Saul literally falling from his high horse. It's become this universal metaphor for a reason. It represents a fall from pride, a moment that just strips away all your power and forces you into a state of helplessness, and, this is the important part, deep, deep reflection. And this kind of forces us to ask a pretty tough question about our own lives, doesn't it? When we have our own falls, when we face a major failure or a misfortune, do we just see it as a loss? Or can we see it as an opportunity to really reflect on who we are, what we're doing, and what we truly believe? See, Saul's high horse was built out of his own very specific expectations. He was looking for worldly power, right? A king in glory and majesty, a powerful descendant of King David. What he couldn't accept, what he couldn't even see, was the humble reality, a simple preacher from a backwater town. His pride in what he thought the truth should look like literally blinded him to the truth that was right in front of him. And it's the exact same idea with the scales falling from his eyes. This was about so much more than just getting his physical sight back. Those scales represent everything that was blocking his spiritual vision, his ego, his pride, his rigid dogmatic beliefs. When they fell away, he could, for the first time, truly see. We've all heard that saying, every dark cloud has a silver lining. We kind of throw it around a lot. But Saul's story, man, it gives that phrase some serious spiritual weight. It shows us that even in our absolute darkest moments, in our greatest misfortunes, there can be this incredible opportunity for an awakening, a chance for the scales to fall from our own eyes. Okay, so this brings us to our final section, and maybe the most important one. The big so what? What does this ancient story of transformation have to say to us, right here, right now? So after this life-shattering experience, Saul does something huge. He adopts a new name, Paul. And this isn't just like picking a new nickname, this is a symbolic rebirth. He is making a fundamental break from his old identity, from Saul the persecutor, the dogmatic Pharisee, to become Paul, the greatest champion of the very faith he once swore to destroy.
But let's be real for a second. This kind of radical change, a true rebirth, is never easy. It's incredibly difficult. It means you have to let go of cherished beliefs, attitudes that might have defined you for years. It's like trying to plant a new garden, but the soil is still full of old, thorny roots. Our old habits, our old ways of thinking, they have a way of creeping back in. True change requires a constant effort to start completely fresh.
And this is where the source material does something really interesting. It zooms out from this one man's personal story and applies it on a massive scale. It draws this powerful parallel to our world today, suggesting that maybe humanity itself is collectively riding a high horse. It makes the argument that we're on a path that is fundamentally unsustainable, and that we, as a whole, are in desperate need of our own road to Damascus moment, a radical change and a new guiding light. In the end, Saul's transformation from persecutor to apostle is this timeless reminder that profound, radical change is always possible. But here's the kicker. It often doesn't start with a step up. It starts with a fall. It starts with a humbling moment that forces us to see ourselves and the world in a completely new light. And that leaves us all with a pretty challenging final question. What high horse do you need to fall from?